And which leads to the other sort of piece of research, I guess, or a survey, and this one from the Register, talking about
Mhm.
how sort of not well. Actually, I did find it surprising. So they're quoting data from Anthropic, a study that Anthropic did as part of their new Anthropic Economic Index, but found that only 4%. The headline is only 4% of jobs relying heavily on AI, and that it's mostly in mid-wage roles. Although I have some issues with this data, so I'll pause there and let you tee it up before I challenge it.
Yeah. So Anthropic has put a bunch of economists and social scientists together in house as part of their organization and started this economic index to try to figure out how AI is being used. And although they're seeing roughly a third of users saying that they use AI in a fair number of tasks, they say that 75% of their usage is done by 4% of their jobs. So still it's very top heavy in terms of the usage that is happening. And obviously, a lot of the work being done is based on coding or graphic and text creation.
I mean, I think one of the issues I had a couple of issues with this from the standpoint. One is you have a little bit of confirmation bias, right? AI is still a leading edge technology. So, of
Mm-hmm.
course, you're going to see more people in technology and those domains using it. So, I don't know if that's really indicative of the eventual use case play or, how the dispersion looks. Secondly, I found it interesting their categorization that to be at this top use, you had to have 75% of your activities somehow supported through AI. I consider myself a power user. I use it all day long, and I guarantee I'm nowhere near that number, right? A
Mm-hmm.
huge, massive amount of my work has nothing to do with me using AI to do it. And so by its category, I'm way down the list. And it's like, so it's like, I don't know what these people are doing, that they're using 75% of their tasks are using AI. So I sort of had some issues with that. But I do think it is interesting that there is, well, I was surprised on the one hand that 43% are actually seeing work automation versus 57% of augmentation. But again, I look at that and say, well, what does that mean? That doesn't mean 43% are completely replacing workers. It just means
Mm-hmm.
it's completely replacing complete tasks. And that makes a lot of sense, right? And that actually kind of plays out. So, I think when I think I'm most I sort of am discounting, frankly, some of the data itself, but what I'm applauding is this idea of this is the first player in the space that's using creating meaningful data, and I forgot they're using a company to anonymize it, but that's actually using the actual data to give us some insight as to how this is being used.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the critical thing. Even if the data itself is subject to a bunch of caveats, I think this is an important step to understanding. And I think, by the way, if you're an enterprise leader, you need to be thinking about the same thing as you start introducing AI, how you're going to measure it, how you're going to monitor it, how you're going to understand what it's doing, because there is a lot of expense involved. And I think it's a critical element to be able to get this type of data and then normalize it to your environment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Tracking the market is an important part of understanding which AI functionalities you're going to be able to launch easily, depending on the maturity of your own organization. And this is right now an interesting benchmark there, obviously showing that we are in early adopter status at the enterprise level.
And I think that is probably the really, really important takeaway. It is easy. I mean, I find myself falling for it, even as somebody who lives and breathes this every day, of thinking that everybody is on this journey, and the reality is we are still so early
Mm-hmm.
days. And I think it's an important thing to remember.